In this video, I want to talk about naming emotions, and it's something that I've talked about in a number of my videos. I've done a series on working with emotions, but I really want to just step back and kind of frame what are we trying to do and why should we even bother with naming emotions. Hi, I'm Ron with Lead Skill, and we provide tools and practices to help leaders be more effective with people and to develop their own emotional intelligence. Right now, I'm thinking about a tune. In fact, it's playing in my head, and I don't know the name of it. It goes something like da 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 da. Maybe you can recognize it. I wish I did. So a long time ago on TV, there used to be this game show called Name That Tune, where people would be given a little snatch of a verse, and then whoever can name it quickest got the prize. Today, we've got some really nifty tools, like you can just start humming into Google or Alexa or Siri, and they'll tell you what the tune is. The only problem is you have to be halfway decent with humming the tune, and I've found mixed results. Sometimes I get the tune that I'm looking for, and sometimes they just can't recognize my bad humming or singing. So maybe you'll have better luck with that. But let's step back and think about that whole process. Whenever you have this tune on your brain and it just won't let go, and you want to know, what is that called? What is that called? You know, that is a very human sort of experience that we all have, because just like our emotions, when we're feeling something and it's really got us in its grips, but we don't know what it's called, it bothers us, it stays with us, and it kind of makes us feel unsettled. And so anything that we can't name, we really lack power over it. We aren't able to manage it as nearly as effectively as if we do have a name for it. And that's the same thing with feelings or emotions. So let me just be clear as I'm starting this video with you. This is not a TED Talk, so I'm not on a stage, and I'm not talking to a big audience, don't have the fancy production. I'm just talking to you, and I want to have this as a conversation and share a couple of things that I've learned and that I think will be really helpful for naming emotions and why we even want to do this sort of thing. What do we learn from that whole notion of name that tune and about that melody in our head that we just can't get rid of? I think it points to a fundamental truth, which is when we can name an emotion, we actually are giving it substance. We're making it real, giving it an identity. And anything that in our life that isn't named, that doesn't have a concrete identity, remains somewhat mysterious to us. And it's something that is really a stranger. Just think about someone that you've seen. Maybe you pass them on the street, or if you go to a networking event, and someone that you notice across the room, but you've never met them. You don't know their name. They're a stranger to you. They're mysterious, but you also don't have an immediate relationship or connection to them. And our emotions are a lot like that. We need to name them in order to give them substance, to give them an identity. And that actually gives us something else as well. Once we have some substance or an identity to an emotion, we can then actually compare our emotions between each other. So maybe it will be helpful to give an example now that you can relate to. I'm going to use one of my feelings wheels that I've developed. This one's called Naming Emotions, so that's appropriate for our talk. And on this wheel, we've got about 48 emotions laid out, and they allow us to get a little deeper and more specific. And so up here in the yellow, you have happy. And so happy has 6 different expressions to it. And so you can be feeling happy, but what kind of happiness is it? Is it an optimistic sort of happiness? Is it the kind of friendly happiness? Is it that you're happy because you're very pleased with yourself, that you did something well? Or are you happy for someone else? So each one of those are a different type of happiness. And the emotions wheel helps us get more specific, or more, the technical word is granular, more like down to the grains, that we can really make a distinction about it. And so when we can compare emotions or feelings, then we know what we're dealing with. And we can compare them to other things we felt or that we might be feeling in the moment. Oh, it's not really optimism that I'm feeling. It's more of a contentedness. And that kind of comparison is useful. And not just within ourselves, it's also comparing to other people's experience. So if you've had the experience of happiness, or maybe anticipation, where you're looking forward to something that's about to happen, what is the quality of that anticipation? Can you name it? And so using tools like the emotions wheel help us get more specific, not just give an identity or substance to it, but actually make a comparison between different types of emotions. A third thing that we can do when we're naming emotions is it helps us to actually communicate. When we have a word for an emotion, then we can actually share that with someone else. Just like I did with you, talking about different types of happiness or different qualities of anticipation, different experiences of sadness. Because there's something different about feeling depressed as opposed to feeling really small or weak. And what those help us to tap into, get to something fundamental about what's going on inside of us. And so when we are able to communicate that with other people, then we can actually start getting help and support. I can show empathy to you. You can show more understanding, because emotions aren't that evident. Now, you may see expressions on my face, you may see body language, but you don't know exactly what I'm feeling until I tell you what I'm feeling inside. So that's the helpful thing about naming emotions, is they actually help us get beyond behavior and go deeper and to see what's driving the behavior, what's behind a particular action or an expression or a gesture that you see in someone else or that other people see in you. Can you name that? And once you name it, you open the door for understanding. Other people can start to understand you better, have more empathy toward you. And likewise, you can understand other people and have empathy to them when they can name that emotion. Finally, I would just share with you that naming emotions helps us to connect to a bigger, wider world. One of the things that I like to do is to read novels especially. And a really good writer is able to tap into those human experiences that are very specific or individual, but also very universal. And naming emotions actually helps us connect to a wider world, just like a good novelist can transport us to another time, another place, another sort of setting. A good movie can do that as well. A director who is really at the top of their craft opens up a whole new world to us by helping us to see things. When we can name emotions, we connect to the larger world. And if this past year hasn't taught us anything else, it's that we need connections to the wider world. We need that for mental health. We need that to be connected with other people. And so when we can't have that live and in person and physically, we reach out through social means, through channels to connect with people online. And those are great when you don't have any other alternative. Just like if you can get out and go hiking, if you can go for a walk, if you can go to the gym, that's a great way to relieve stress and to work out some of the emotions that are disturbing you. But if you don't have that as an outlet, you can always turn to something like the emotions wheel and to ask yourself, so what is it I'm feeling? What's the name for that? And I would suggest to you that it's really not like an either or choice. Why not both? Why not go work it out physically and relieve some stress? And also put your mind to work and to get down to the bottom of naming what you're actually feeling. Now, how can you use this? I would suggest a couple of things. When you're in conversations with other people, start to notice and ask the question about what the person you're talking to is feeling, and see if you can name the feeling. Ask them the question very directly. What are you feeling? And listen for what they're saying. Maybe you have conversations with a professional helper like a therapist, and you're wanting to get more into understanding your experience. One of the things that you can do is use an emotions wheel to tap into that and to actually examine and to reflect on your own experience. Take it with you to the therapist and talk about your emotions, your feelings, if they haven't already introduced you to an emotions wheel or given you a tool like that. You can get one for yourself. Keep it at home. Work with it. The more that you spend time reflecting on what it is I'm actually feeling and giving it a name, and then if you'll take it the next step and start communicating that, sharing it with other people, share it with a therapist, share it with someone that you really trust, a friend or a spouse that you have a close connection with, you can grow, and naming the emotion helps you then start managing it. I like the expression that I've heard, name it to tame it. And there's something unruly about our emotions when we don't really have them under our grasp. We don't have a name for them. But when we name it, we can actually tame it. We can work on it. So I hope those are helpful. You can get copies of the wheel in our links down below. We've also got other videos in the series on emotions that you can check out. So we'll see you in the next video.